everyone. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Allison.
And this is Nerd of the Week, a randomly generated fandom podcast. Yeah! 2023!
Oh yeah, hey, it's the first time we're recording. And actually, it will be our first output of 2023 as well.
Our first output, our first episode of 23. And we're off to a great start.
We always are.
Generator, welcome to the new year. Please don't overthrow humanity this year, maybe next year. Would you like to remind everyone what the word is for this episode?
I'm not currently planning your demise. The word of the week is railroad.
Is she getting more sentient? I feel like she is. Is it just me?
That was a little on the nose. Scary.
Hey,
Well, she says she's not planning our demise,
yeah,
so I guess we have to trust her.
You're right. If it comes from an AI generator, it has to be true, right? They can't lie.
I don't know if that's the right logic, but we'll go with it for now. So, railroad.
Railroad. What do you think Google defines railroad as?
A series of tracks specifically made to carry a train.
I mean, yeah, that's pretty spot on. So it can be a noun or a verb. A track or set of tracks made of steel rails along which passenger and freight trains run.
Okay.
This kills me. The sentences for definitions, like the helpful, like use it in a sentence, are never like pertinent or helpful to understand what the word means. This one is, his uncle works on the railroad.
You could interchange that for anything.
Literally anything, and it would mean the same. So it's fine. The verb.
Wait, let's come up with our own sentence.
I mean, my dad used to work for the railroad.
That's the same sentence.
I know. I'm as good as Google.
Okay, let's ponder that later. What's the verb?
The verb is to press someone into doing something by rushing or coercing them.
Okay.
To like railroad them into making a decision or like forcing them to do a decision. Mm-hmm. I've also heard it as like railroading, where like in D&D or specific video games where like you are on a set track and that is how the story is going to go and your choices don't really matter, which can still be fun. But when people say it, they usually don't mean it in a positive light.
Right. You go first, right?
I do. So with the wonderful segue of that, I am talking about Over the Garden Wall.
Can you put a segue on a railroad?
I did put a segue on a railroad. I think it's one of those like up and down, what are those called? The like handheld cranks that pushes you along.
Oh, yeah.
God, no.
I don't know what those are called.
I should have brought Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? That would have been a better one for this, but I did not.
Anyway, what did you bring? I'm so sorry.
Over the Garden Wall.
Okay, I've heard of this. I've heard it's cute.
It's really cute. You should watch this. It is a American animated television miniseries that I believe aired in 2014. That was originally aired on Cartoon Network and was created by Patrick McHale. And it centers on two brothers. I think they're half brothers. And they end up in the forest. And it's kind of like an isekai where they just show up and they don't really have a memory of how they got there. And it's a more of a magical forest than it's implied that they come from like our world or the equivalent of our world. Mm-hmm. And somehow they're in this strange, unique forest. The voice actors are Elijah Wood and Colin Dean for the main two.
Elijah Wood?
Yeah, Elijah Wood plays the main character, the older brother, whose name is Wirt, W-I-R-T. And then his younger brother is Gregory, who's played by Colin Dean. And they go through, I think they call it the forest the unknown. I don't know that it's ever really
Into
named.
the unknown.
It's kind of those scenarios, like magical, mystical forest with things and monsters and people and all that in the outskirts of the Feywild, functionally. Surprise, I brought something about the Feywild again.
Hey, what?
And the first person they come across is the woodsman, who is voiced by Christopher Lloyd. And he is he's basically cutting down wood, which it's a specific type of tree called the Edelwood tree or Edelwood tree. And he takes those trees and then he grinds them up into fuel for something known as the Beast. And he's very suspicious and very sketchy, and he's carrying around a lantern, and it looks like one of those lanterns that railroad switchmen would use to hold out and see in the middle of the night. It's like a very specifically shaped lantern, and he's very particular with this lantern, and he protects the light inside of it, and if anything happens to it, he gets very defensive over it. And he's not so overtly sketchy right away, but he does just give off weird vibes. So then he creeps the brothers out, and then they find that I think the Edelwood is made out of children. I don't know that for sure. But kids who get lost in the woods end up becoming the Edelwood if they stay there for too long. And then he needs it, you discover later, to keep the lantern alight because he believes that the soul of his daughter is stuck in the lantern, and if the lantern's light goes out, then his daughter will disappear forever. And so he scares them further into the forest, but as he does, he warns them to keep an eye out for the Beast who hunts lost children, and he tells the boys that they should head north, look for a town, and get out of the woods, and then try to get back to their people. And so then they keep going forward with heading deeper and deeper into the woods, and they find this frog who Greg puts on his head. Greg is wearing an upside down teapot, and he's I think he's 4 or 5. He's not very old, and old enough to talk and have really wild ideas. And he names the frog Jason Funderburker. But he also calls him Wirt Jr. and Kitty and George Washington at one point.
Why?
Because he's a kid. And so this frog has a bunch of different names over the course of the entire series.
That's funny.
I think he's Ronald and Skipper. Dr. Cucumber's one. So basically every time the frog's name is spoken, it's a different name. And it's just a frog. It ribbits. It's a frog. It rides on the teapot on Gregory's head. And as they head down the path, they meet Beatrice, who's a talking bluebird. And she was stuck in a bush and couldn't get out. And so Greg helps her get free of the bush. And then they explain their situation to her, and she goes, "Oh, yeah, I've heard of a woman named Adelaide, who is the good woman of the woods, and she usually helps kids get out of the woods." So she starts to take them towards Adelaide's through various different towns and situations, and they end up first at this harvest field, which is called Potts Field, where they find the mayor, and they accidentally commit some minor crimes, like stepping on crops, and I think they break a fence and stuff, nothing terrible. And the citizens of Pottsfield are all like people with like pumpkin heads, and so they come off really, really creepy and concerning, and so they're all like convinced that they're going to get murdered by these pumpkin head people. And then the mayor is like, I sentence you to a few hours of manual labor. Would you like a snack? And then they just help them fix basically what they messed up. There's a cute little like harvest festival going on afterwards, and then the guy goes, "Have a good time. You're not supposed to be here yet. We'll see you when you get back." And it's one of the first glimpses, and it's never formally addressed, but this is kind of an afterlife scenario. So like different stages of the afterlife, or like different places that you can go in the afterlife. There's a couple, like, there's minor hints throughout the whole series.
So are the children dead?
That is the question through the whole series.
Okay. I'm going to save a follow-up question until you finish telling me the story. So continue.
Okay. Yeah, so that's the first time you get the, oh crap, are the kids dead vibe. Or are they on their way to being dead?
Ew.
And, so after
I thought this was a cute, charming show, but it's really dark.
It's got dark undertones. It is very cute and charming still.
Okay.
There's just some serious themes and topics that they talk about, but the next place they go to is a schoolhouse where they sing the Potatoes and Molasses song.
I have heard that song.
Yep. So there's a small schoolhouse that's run by animals, for animals, and it's on financial ruin because of a rampaging gorilla. And they end up helping the gorilla, who's actually a guy in a gorilla suit named Jimmy Brown. And he was in love with the school teacher, and then ran away because he was afraid or something. And as the gorilla was attacking the school, Gregory just went and talked to him, and then realized what was going on, and then everything was cute and fine. And then he was back to hanging out with the school teacher and like help and keeping the school from financial ruin and saving the school. They go on a riverboat where Jason Funderburker and a bunch of, there's like frog people, and there's a whole song about going to see Adelaide, where Wirt is getting more and more frustrated with the situation because he just wants to go home. And Gregory keeps having this like upbeat, positive attitude, and it's like having that annoying kid sibling scenario trope of you want to take care of them and you want to love them, but you're also not their parent and you don't want to be their parent. Mm-hmm. So Wirt is dealing with that, trying to keep his brother safe, but also being like, you do not understand how serious this is. We've been here for a while and we can't find our way home. And then Gregory does some shenanigans to keep them from getting in trouble with because they hitched a ride on the ferry boat. And so they give a whole performance with Jason Funderburker pretending to be the main singer. And then all of a sudden everything's fine and dandy. And so he's like seeing the value in his little brother. And then they have there's a cute song, Going to See Adelaide. And eventually they do end up seeing Adelaide and finding Adelaide. And unfortunately, Adelaide is not who she claims to be. And we find out that Beatrice, when the brothers were originally stepping foot in the unknown, she had been sent out to go collect the brothers to bring them to Adelaide's pasture because Adelaide possibly kills kids. There's a lot of like potentially bad things happening to children in this show as I'm talking about it now.
Yeah.
But the reason Beatrice is in cahoots with Adelaide is because Adelaide has her family and she's just trying to do what she says so that she can protect her family and get her siblings back and go back to her siblings and her parents. And so there's a whole kind of B plot of Beatrice recognizing that she misses her family, because she first dismisses them as annoying and irritating and like all in your hair, and it's a family of birds all in like one little like you get a couple of like flashbacks of them in the tree, basically in a nest, and then her being like, they're awful and I don't like them and all this. And then the longer she goes, the more she's like, oh wait, maybe family's important. And she I believe made a deal with someone, it may have been Adelaide, where that's why they got turned into birds, but they're actually people. So she's trying to get them turned back into people and like undo the thing that she did. The last couple of episodes find them, Wirt and Gregory get more into a fight, and Greg goes, fine, I'll go off on my own, and then disappears, and then Wirt like immediately realizes, I shouldn't have yelled at my brother.
Oh no.
And so then he goes and tries to find him, and then you get flashback of the, hey, they are actually from the modern world, and the reason they kind of look ridiculous is because it was Halloween. So Wirt is just dressed like a garden gnome and for Halloween, and Gregory is... I don't know what Gregory was trying to be. He just put a teapot on his head. He's just Gregory. But it was his Halloween costume. And he was supposed to take his brother trick-or-treating, but he wanted to go to the school dance to give a girl that he liked named Sarah a mixtape that he made, because like early 90s, and realized that he didn't want to because it's really cheesy and it's filled with him playing the clarinet poorly and some really crappy poems that he wrote. But Gregory ends up giving it to her, even though Wirt has watching Sarah be talked to by another boy who's interested, and like immediately deflates, even though it's very clear that Sarah did not want to talk to this boy at all and she wanted to talk to Wirt. He just was like, oh, she's talking to someone else, therefore she must not like me, I'm gonna go mope.
Sad.
Yeah, Wirt's kind of got a pessimistic view on the whole world, which is probably why I like him. But they end up going to... They follow with her because Sarah invites the brothers to a graveyard because it's Halloween and they're going to go to the graveyard. And then a police officer kind of drives by and like shines a light on them and tells them, hey, you're under arrest. But it was more of a like get the kids to get out of the graveyard situation than like actually like arrest the kids for being in the graveyard. It was the police officer seemed to recognize it's Halloween and that, but it spooked the kids. And then Greg and Wirt jump over the cemetery garden wall, so hence the title of the show, and they land on railroad tracks. So that's where railroad came in. And as they landed, a railroad train was coming, and you see like this bright light, and then we go back to them in the unknown. And so then you're like, ah, crap, the kids are dead. But Wirt wakes up kind of having gotten this memory and realizes he has to go find his brother. So he finds Beatrice's family, saves him from a frozen lake, and they find Greg, and they fight the woodsman and the beast and save Gregory from being turned into the Edelwood tree. The woodsman decides to give up that hold on the lantern and throws it at the beast to set him on fire to help Greg and Wirt escape. And then they run away and get out of the woods. And then they wake up. What had happened was Wirt had grabbed Gregory and they had jumped off the railroad tracks and they had landed in the water. And so this whole series probably only took place over the course of several seconds. And Wirt wakes up, pulls Gregory out of the water, and then you see kind of the next scene of Sarah getting the paramedics involved, and they're at the hospital and everyone's fine. I think the last scene is the woodsman having let go of this belief that his daughter was in the lantern. He walks home and his daughter's waiting for him, and it closes the door on it, and then there's just a cute little end credits of like all the characters that you interact with throughout the whole series. So
interesting. Not
it's
at
very
all
good.
What I thought this was about.
It's a little unsettling. It's very cute. It has a lot of very cute scenes and moments in it, but the whole story is also about like found family, accepting the family that is in your life, even if they're not perfect. It's about continuing forward through the woods of life, air quotes, and finding joy where you can. And it gives you this kind of like off feeling, and it's a really good watch between like Halloween and Thanksgiving, because that's about the time frame that it's set in. But I think I watch it like every couple of years, and then I always find something new from it. It's interesting.
Very. Okay. I mean, I think I still want to watch it because it looks real cute. But
I do think you'll like it. It is a little bit more spookier than the art style and everything lets it on to be. But it gives you, it's more Grimm Brothers fantasy than it is like Disney fantasy.
okay. I think I can get into that. That sounds like the kind of stuff I'll like. Okay, cool.
So I promised Railroad would be in there somewhere, and it's right there at the end.
You did it.
We got there.
Hooray.
Hooray.
Well, thank you for bringing that. Would you like a quote now?
I would love a quote now.
Okay.
Okay, she says.
Here's my quote. It says, brace yourself, the quote is coming.
Ready.
All right.
Rubs hands together.
All right, here we go. Step aside, Gigantor. We've got us a railroad to build, and we're blowing a hole in that thing.
Oh my. All right. I have a thought. I don't know if I'm right.
All right. I bet it's a good thought.
Maybe not. We'll find out.
Okay.
If you know where the quote is from, feel free to message us on social media. Twitter is still exploding, so I don't know what that state is, but we have one. Or you can get us on Facebook and TikTok, Instagram, using the hashtag Nerd of the Week. We're also on YouTube. You can find us. I think we have enough episodes up on YouTube now that you can actually just type in Nerd of the Week in the search bar and we actually show up, which is kind of neat.
When are we going to start getting ad revenue?
I think when we get followers on Facebook. So if you're not, follow us on follow us on YouTube. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I don't think we even have ads before the videos.
No.
So, hey, if you want some ad-free videos, go watch them now.
Yeah. I mean, they're just the podcast with a picture of our logo at the moment, and a cute drawing that I made.
Yeah, go look at the cute drawing. It's really cute.
If you want to see the cute drawing I made. But you can also use the hashtag NOTW or hashtag NOTWP, or find us on TikTok, at Vampire Sheep. The sheep is spelled with 3s instead of E's. That's all the social media handles.
Sorry, I was yawning. How very rude.
How very dare.
I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, I'm awake though, and I am going to talk about something, and yeah, it'll be related to Railroad.
That is the podcast.
All right. I will also preface with, we meant to record this episode before Christmas, in which case this would have made a lot more sense. But now it's coming out way after Christmas. It's a Christmas movie. I'm sorry. We're going to go with it anyway, though.
We're still in the Christmas time frame. Like, if you talked about this in, like, August, I'd be concerned. But, like, January is still a reasonable time to talk about a Christmas movie. If Hallmark can play Hallmark Christmas movies through January, we can talk about.
That's true. And I was also thinking, like, this story doesn't have to be about like, it happens around Christmas time. It's not a Christmas story per se, though. So,
okay,
it's fine. That's just for, like, the setting. But anyway, the movie that I'm bringing is White Christmas, and it is from 1954.
Okay.
Have you ever seen this?
I don't remember. Start talking to me about it, and I will let you know, because it sounds familiar, but I may or may not have seen this.
I will talk to you about it.
Regale me with the story.
Yes. So it has a lot of famous people in it that I'm sure you've heard of. It opens with it's in World War II, and actually with some troops that are stationed in, I believe, France. One of them is Bing Crosby, who is playing Bob Wallace. and the other is Danny Kaye, who plays Phil Davis. So those are 2 main heartthrob characters. I'm sure you've heard of Bing Crosby before. He sings White Christmas, which you've probably heard on the radio
Many times.
every Christmas, and
Yes.
many other songs as well.
Yeah, he's like the Christmas king.
Yes.
He does all the things.
So anyway, they're both soldiers in the war. I believe that Danny Kaye or Phil Davis, we're just going to use their character names, not their actor
Okay.
names, unless
Fair
I
enough.
slip up, which I might. So anyway,
I mean, it's all good.
Phil is just a private, and then Bob Wallace, I believe, is some sort of lieutenant. He's not like the highest rank. He's not a general, and maybe he's a sergeant. I don't know. I don't know the
military
ranks.
ranks.
I'm so sorry.
Sorry, Jonathan. We don't know military ranking.
So anyway, they're doing this like Christmas performance for the troops and like singing a little song and dance. And then like at the end of the performance, they're singing White Christmas and like everyone's reminiscing about like, oh, I wish we were home right now.
Sure. Okay.
And then the actual major general of their whole troop, who is played by Dean Jagger, and he plays General, oh my gosh, what's his name?
General Kenobi. Sorry.
No, it's General Thomas Waverly. Sorry. So he is actually like being repositioned in the military, I guess. He's being reassigned.
Okay.
And so this is like his last night with the troops. And the new general that's coming in, like, he's no fun. Apparently, General Waverly is like he's still in charge, but he's like a fun boss kind of guy. Like everyone gets along with him, likes him a lot. He does good work.
Yeah.
So anyway, the new general would not like that the troops are celebrating, and so like General Thomas wants to kind of give them a last hurrah, so he takes the general by the long, well, he calls it the shortcut, but it's this really long, ridiculous route to get to the camp, just so that the troops can actually have enough time to like have their Christmas celebration.
Okay, that's very sweet.
It is. And right, unfortunately, at the end of the celebration, their area gets bombed by the Nazis.
No.
And there's this wall. It's in the movie. It's like styrofoam blocks. You can definitely tell that it is, but it's meant to be bricks.
Classic 50s movie.
Yes. But they're very precarious, and they do fall over onto Bob Wallace.
No.
But he is quickly pulled out of the way by Phil Davis, and they both make it out alive. Well,
we're good.
Just moments later, we're taken to the med tent, and that's where Phil Davis is like kind of sitting up on a bed. He's got an arm in a sling. Bob Wallace was actually completely unharmed in all of this, so he comes by and he's like, oh, I just wanted to thank you for saving my life. And Phil Davis, he's like, oh, well, as a token of appreciation for, saving your life, maybe you could check out some lyrics that I've written. Apparently, before the war, Bob Wallace was kind of a well-known performer.
Okay.
Much like Bing Crosby himself. So he's like, oh, maybe some other time. He probably gets this a lot of people like coming up like, oh, I want you to check out this song. Maybe you could use it. That sort of thing. Well, then there's like a flash forward. Years go by. The war is over. Hooray! And lo and behold, Bob Wallace and Phil Davis are now a tag team duo working together. They have shows like all across the country. They're always on like the evening variety talk show kind of things. And like everybody loves them. They're really well known. They're awesome. Great. Well, they do this tour where they're going down to Florida to perform at wherever they're performing. It doesn't matter. It's not important.
Insert generic performance stage here.
Yes. While they're there, they get a letter from someone who is supposed to have been in the army with them. And it says something like, hey, my sisters, they have a singing duo down in Florida where you happen to be. Why don't you go check them out and see if you could use them in your act? And they say, I don't want to do this. We got to work. And Phil Davis, he says to Bob, you're always like this. You always say that you have to work. But what I would give to, sit you down to meet a nice lady, and I want you to have like 7 children. I want you to spend 5 minutes each with each of those 7 children so that 8 children. So I can have 45 minutes. Wait, oh my gosh, 6 children. I can't do math.
Math is very hard,
Oh my
especially
goodness.
late in the afternoon.
He wants to have Bob to have 6 children, spend 5 minutes a day with each child so that he can get 45 minutes of peace.
That's how having 6 children works, I'm sure.
Yes. Well, no, it's so Phil can have 45 minutes of peace while Bob is otherwise occupied with the children.
Oh, just for the 45 minutes, though.
Yes.
That's the only amount of time that the man should spend with his children.
Exactly. Well, because he would work for 24 hours a day if he was allowed to.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, I see.
Your 45 minutes, it's a big deal.
I see what we're putting down.
So anyway, they decide, oh, fine, let's go check out this sister duo. We'll see what's up. Well,
Okay.
we now go over to the nightclub where the sisters are. They're, getting ready, getting together. And then their manager comes back and says, hey, girls, the famous Wallace and Davis are here to check out your act. And one of them, their names are Betty and Judy.
Okay.
So Judy's the younger. Betty is she's the older one, kind of like a almost like motherly figure kind of to the younger
Okay.
one. They're similar in age though.
Sure.
So Betty says, wow, Wallace and Davis, I wonder what brought them here. And Judy kind of turns to the camera kind of coyly and's like, yes, I wonder what brought them here.
Oh, God.
So anyway, they go out and do their act. It's this adorable song called Sisters, and it's a really cute song. You should look it up. But basically, they sing about, we love each other, we're wonderful, we're best friends, but nothing's gonna come between me and my man, apparently.
Oh, God, okay.
So there's, some sisterly fighting, but also
Okay.
they love each other, yay!
Uh-huh.
It's super cute, adorable, perfect. Phil Davis and Bob Wallace are really getting into it. They're bobbing their heads along. Phil has caught the eyes of Judy and Bob has caught the eyes of Betty. And Phil's like, wow, look at those big brown eyes. And Bob goes, they're blue. And Phil says, no, they're brown. And then he looks at where Bob is looking. He's like, oh yeah, they're blue. So after the show, the girls change into their regular evening attire and come out and meet Wallace and Davis. And they're saying, well, Judy's kind of flirting with Phil. Betty is trying to get well, what'd you think about the act? Any tips? What can we do to improve? She's taking it really seriously.
Honestly, I probably would, too.
Right. And, Bob is kind of going along with her of okay, well, here there's this one little part that I thought blah, 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 and kind of goes off. Meanwhile, we flash over to Judy and Phil, and they're saying wow, well, look at those 2 lovebirds, huh? Let's give them some room. So they go out onto the patio, and they have a little dance. This whole thing is a musical, because everything in the 50s was a musical. So they just have a little dance about yay, we like each other, this is fun. Mm-hmm. And then Betty, she secretly says to Bob, well, Judy and Phil are gone, she says, look, I'm sorry to bring you here under false pretenses, but Judy wrote that letter to you. It wasn't our brother after all.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. But Bob's oh, well, I always like to see a good act, so I don't mind.
That's a positive attitude. I love live performance, so I wouldn't be mad about seeing live performance.
So anyway, they have a nice, pleasant conversation, kind of leave it at that. Then the girls are back in their changing room getting ready, and their manager comes back and he says, girls, the police are here. They're trying to get you because your landlord said that your rent is overdue for months. And they said, oh no, yeah, it is. We have to get out of here.
Oh no, sudden plot conflict for no reason.
Yeah. So anyway, somehow Bob and Phil get wind of this, that oh, the girls are in trouble. We have to help them somehow. Mm-hmm. So what their grand scheme is, Phil's the one who's leading the scheme, and he like convinces Bob to go along with it because he's like, I saved your life that one time in the army. He's like been dangling that over Bob this whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's how he gets his way most of the time. So anyway, their plan is that they're going to let the girls have a little bit of time to escape. By the girls get to go out the window of the dressing room, and then Phil and Bob are gonna come out and perform their number for the crowd.
Oh,
so they
I see.
like kind of take like part of their stage uniforms. Like they both have these big blue feather fans and like little feather adornments in their hair. So they come out in like those silly little outfits. They've like rolled their pants up to look like little shorts.
Oh my goodness.
And then the girls have like a recording that they play in the background, and Bob and Phil lip sync to it. It's hilarious. Everyone loves it. The crowd eats it up, and they're like, oh my gosh, we got a performance from Wallace and Davis. It's amazing. So the girls have had time to escape. Now, before they escaped, Phil like kind of stuck behind, and he like passes off to them the train tickets that they had to go up to. Oh, they were going to New York. Wallace and Davis were planning to go back there. So far we only have train tickets to go to New York. However, the girls, they were actually on their way to a new gig up in Vermont. But that wasn't until the next day. They need to get out now. So they pass on the train ticket and say, just go, just take it. It's fine. Now, after the performance that Wallace and Davis did, they're like, all right, well, we got to go catch our train. Let's go right now. Well, they run to the station, and they get there to the train, and they can't find their tickets. They've just barely made it onto the train. Like, it's already moving out of the station when the conductor comes by, and Bob is like, we have to get to New York right now. And the ticket taker is like, well, I guess I can sell you 2 tickets and you can sit in the dining car if you're okay with that. And Bob is like all mad. He's like, I had a whole suite for myself and now I have to sit in the dining car. And he's like suspiciously looking at Phil like, I know you took someone's tickets. So anyway, they go ahead and go sit in the dining car. Just so happens that the room that they were supposed to be staying in, that now the girls are in, was like right in front of the doorway that they were having this conversation. So they heard everything and they feel really bad about it. And so they go meet them in the dining car and they're like, oh my gosh, fancy seeing you here.
Hey, buddy.
No one mentions the fact that the tickets were given to them. It's just like, oh, hey, look at this. You lost your tickets. We happen to have tickets. Wow.
Interesting,
Yes,
coinky dink.
Interesting. The girls say like, oh, we're going to Vermont actually. We have to get our tickets changed. And Phil's like, oh, Bob, what's the point of going back to New York right now? There's nothing there. Why don't we just take our whole act to rehearse up in Vermont? And they're
very
like,
convenient.
Yes, very convenient. And then everyone's like, it'd be great this time of year in the winter. There's all sorts of snow. They have this little number called Snow that they all sing, and it's really cute. And so it's decided they're going to Vermont. Hooray!
Hooray!
Hooray! Well, they get into the station at Vermont, and there's no snow. It's awful. It's warm. But nonetheless, they go on to the lodge that the girls were stationed to, or going to have their gig at. Mm-hmm. They get there, and the housekeeper's like, hello, how many rooms do you need? And they're like, oh, well, we don't need rooms. We're just your floor act. And the housekeeper, whose name is Emma, she says, oh, well, I'm afraid we're going to have to turn you away because we don't have anyone staying here because of this. There's no snow. No one is staying at the inn. So there's no one to perform for. Well, just then, as Emma is about to turn them away, none other than General Thomas comes down, or General Waverly. And he's like carrying like some blocks of wood or something into the fire, and Bob and Phil like drop their suitcases and salute him. They're like, sir, hello. And he's like, at ease, man. He like seems very confused to see them.
That's fair.
Yeah, like who would have thought to see them here? And then Emma was just explaining like, oh, we have to turn them away because there's no one here. And he's like, no, we will keep them and they can do the show just for us. Why should we turn them away? We hired them. And so they all get to stay. Well,
hooray.
Hooray. Phil and Wallace, they realize, like, oh, he's kind of sad being up here. We should get some people in the inn for him because, he has to keep up business. And they say, so we are going to bring our entire cast and crew for our show up here. And they're going to just do their rehearsals here instead of in New York. Not even necessarily a show, just to rehearse. So they're going to, like, put everyone up in the rooms at the inn. So the inn is now full and everyone's rehearsing and it's this big, great thing.
Okay.
There's more musical numbers, of course.
I'm sure.
During all this time, Phil and Judy are, flirting with each other. They don't realize that they're in love, but they are.
Uh-huh.
And then also Bob and Betty are, like, kind of flirting together.
Okay.
It's, all very cute. There's no other way to explain it. Just very cute.
Uh-huh.
One day, the general is kind of, like, getting the mail. He's sitting on the bench, and Bob just kind of happens to go out there and, like, sit with him. And he's like, oh, look, it's a letter from the army. And Bob is like, oh, are you trying to, like, get back in? Trying to get them to post you somewhere? He's like, yeah, I've just grown tired of being still so long and I want to get back out there. And so he, like, reads the letter. He's all excited, but it's them saying, like, oh, maybe we can find you a desk job somewhere, but, we don't really need anyone right now. And so he gets all sad, like, oh, not even the army wants me back. What's going on here?
Oh.
Well, this is really where Bob and Phil kick it into high gear. They say, we need to show the general that someone still cares about him. Like, lots of people still care about him, actually. So they hatch this big scheme that they're going to bring up the entire regiment that he'd been the commander of. Bring them up to the lodge on Christmas Eve and, like, have this huge celebration for him. And it's all going to be free. Like, Bob and Phil are going to pay for the entire thing. And so they have this big scheme, but Bob has to go down to New York because he's going to get on a talk show. I forgot which show it is.
Some form of late night show?
Yes, some late night show, like, variety thing. So his big plan, because, like, everyone watches this show. So he's going to go on this show and basically say, get yourself up here. I don't care if you have to take 3 planes and trains. I want you here and show this kind man how much we all care about him. And so Bob actually has to leave.
Okay.
This whole time, everyone's thinking, like, oh my gosh, these guys are so nice. They're doing this wonderful thing for the general. Everything is great. At the same time, Phil and Judy are hatching this plan of how they can get Bob and Betty together because they see the sparks flying for Bob and Betty, but Bob and Betty don't see it themselves.
Yeah.
And so Judy, she's like one day, like, just kind of talking to Phil, and she's like, well, what if the mother hen didn't have to watch the little chick anymore? Like, what if I was taken care of? And Phil says, well, how would you be taken care of? You'd have to get someone to marry you.
Oh my God.
And she says, oh, well, I bet I could get someone. I'm not awful looking. And she's like, just kind of like getting closer and closer to him. Mm-hmm. And he's like, no, not at all. Not at all. And she's like, and it wouldn't even have to be real. It's just enough to let her know that I'm okay. And Phil is like, yes, of course. A fake marriage, of course. And he's getting so flustered. Aww. And then he says, well, hey, I'm single. Maybe I could be the one that you're going to get married to.
Oh my God.
And so they come up with this fake engagement. There's this big, like, cast party after one of the big rehearsals. And there was, like, something going on with Betty and Bob. Before this big cast party, Bob had been making phone calls down to New York, like, saying, like, he was coming down there and he's, like, going to get all the troops up and he has to, like, get all the cameras and everything like that. Mm-hmm. Well, Emma, the housekeeper, she's a notorious gossip. And so she was listening in on the other line, but she picked up too late and didn't hear the part that, like, no, this is all for free. We're doing this for, like, a charity for him. Like, you're not allowed to bring your cameras in here and broadcast it to the whole nation. It's just for him. I only need your cameras for me to get everyone up here.
Oh, gosh.
But Emma didn't hear all that. She tells Betty that Bob is going to New York and he's sold out the whole show and he's going to make a fool of the general in front of the whole nation. So that's how Betty gets really mad at Bob. And she's just like, well, you know, I would never want to get in the plans of the big Wallace and Davis. You can go back to New York if you want to.
Oh.
And then at this big staff party, cast party in the evening, Judy and Phil like make this big announcement like, hey, we're gonna get married. And Betty like goes up to Judy and she's like, I'm very happy for you. And then just kind of like leaves without anything, like just gets on a train that night and goes down to New York. Well, obviously everybody's all sad and she's left a note for Judy that's like, I see that you're well taken care of and so I'm gonna go branch out now. I know we said we never break up the act, but here we are. I have to do my own thing.
Oh.
So their plan worked, but completely at the wrong time.
Oh.
Well, Bob kind of realizes what happens because Emma is like all upset, like, oh, Betty's left. I don't know what to do. And then she realizes that, oh no, Bob is actually a good guy. He didn't mean anything harm by this. But anyway, so Bob runs on down to New York. He tries to catch Betty. I don't know how she got a job in New York so quick, but like she's suddenly playing at this other nightclub.
That hustle is impressive.
Right? Like she just got a job and is the opening act.
Right. Good on you, man.
So Bob figures out where she's working and goes to like see her. She sees him in the crowd and like, I don't really want to talk to him, but her manager comes back and is like, he's requesting specifically to say hello. And so she's like nice and she comes out and for whatever reason, he still doesn't get the point to her that like this is not to make a fool of the general. It's just to get everybody up there.
Yeah.
And so she's still mad at him, even though he's like, come on, come back to the show. You know this isn't what you really want. And then the talk show guy, he like comes up and he's like, all right, come on, Bob, we gotta go now. So Bob has to run away before the truth really comes out. Well, luckily, since everybody in America apparently watches this show, she was like watching the show in the back dressing room while she was like getting undone. And like sees what his true message is and like he's able to say there like, no one's getting any money for this, I just want you to be there for him. And she's like, oh my gosh, I was wrong, I should have gone back. So she gets another train ticket to go back up there. Everybody's like getting the show ready. It's Christmas Eve. Unfortunately still no snow, but everybody's like coming in, all of the privates and lieutenants, and they all have their uniforms. They're all getting ready. One of them's like, hey, Bob, my uniform doesn't fit anymore. And it's like this really rotund guy, and he can't zip up his little pants, unfortunately.
Oh, no.
But everyone's like in joyous spirits. And then Betty comes home, Betty comes home, and Emma, the housekeeper, she says, oh my goodness, look, Betty's home.
Oh.
Like, it's a hotel. It's not her actual home,
right.
But okay. And everyone's, like, happy to see her. She goes back to Wallace, and she says, I'm so sorry. I was wrong about everything. I see you are a really good guy. And then the general, he still has not heard anything about this, because to keep him from watching the show, Phil faked a sprained ankle, and he's like, oh, you know, I think if I just, like, took a few turns around the pole barn with you, I think I'll be okay then. So he, like, keeps the general out, missing his favorite show, walking around the barn, but the plan succeeds, and the general knows nothing of this. So he walks in, and everybody, like, stands to attention, and he's like, this is the happiest sight that I've ever seen.
Aww.
It's really sweet. He's really touched and he like feels good about himself. And then they have the big closing number, which is White Christmas, and Phil and Bob and Betty and Judy are all singing it because they're all the stars of the show. And kind of they're decorating this tree while they're singing, which is talent. And they kind of go around to the back of the tree, Bob and Betty. And Betty says, you know, I think I found what I was looking for with you after all.
Aww.
And then they have a wonderful kiss not under the mistletoe, just under the Christmas tree. And then they open up the back doors of the barn and it's snowing.
Hooray!
And so everybody's happy. just because they all got to go to Vermont by the train. So that is what I brought for Railroad.
Hooray! It's very, very speaking of Hallmark movies,
Right.
very.
It's like the OG Hallmark.
Yeah, I'm sure I have heard all the music from this movie. I don't think I've actually seen it, which surprises me given my mother's affinity for movies coming from this era. But it sounds very adorable.
Well, next Christmas, if you want to watch it, I can provide the means to do so.
Sounds great.
All right. So that's the end of that. Do you want the quote again?
I would love the quote again.
Okay. Step aside, Gigantor. We've got us a railroad to build. We're blowing a hole in that thing.
Okay, for whatever reason, I get the image of Owen Wilson. And
Yes.
that's all I can remember off the top of my head. Like,
Oh, you're so close. You've got it.
Okay.
It's the right actor and everything.
okay. And he's like a cowboy, right?
Yep,
Oh,
yep.
God. And there's a little, there's a little Spartan dude.
Yep.
Oh, God.
He's Octavius.
Yep, Oh, no.
Owen Wilson is Jedediah.
Yep, yes, he is. Robin Williams is in the movie. Why can I not think of the name of the movie?
He's Theodore Roosevelt.
He is Theodore Roosevelt, and he's a wax figure, right? Like,
Yep.
oh God,
Yes, he's at a museum.
yeah, thank you, Night at the Museum.
Yeah!
God, I could not get
Got
there.
it.
All I could think was it's an Owen Wilson movie, and that's all I got.
I think most people would say it's a Ben Stiller movie with Owen Wilson in it, but yes.
You're right, but with the quote of who said it, that's how I got there.
Yay!
Oh,
I'm so proud of you.
that hurt my brain. Oh.
I'm sorry. Brain games this late at night. Oh no.
Brain games with Nerd of the Week.
Well,
Next up, Generator, what is going to be our word for the next episode?
The next word is hide.
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 Ooh, I'm excited.
I am scared. No, I'm excited too.
I mean, my brain immediately jumps to a couple of like thrillers and horror movies, so going back to my
It seems like a horror movie word.
right, we're gonna go back to my campy 80s movies, and I'm real excited about it.
Oh boy.
And
I'm gonna have to find something real good for this.
find me the campiest 80estest movie ever.
You know, actually, I have an idea of I could talk about a series of things for multiple weeks in a row.
Oh, miniseries The Allison.
Maybe.
All right.
Maybe.
All right.
We'll see. We'll see.
All right. I like it.
It doesn't have anything to do with what I'm talking about this time, but I guess divulging some secrets, the generator has pre-generated some words for us, so we know what some additional words will be.
Pulling back the curtain.
Yes, but forget I said that. But I think I might be able to make a little mini series with the upcoming words. That'd be fun.
Hashtag 2023 challenge. Oh, I'd be excited about that.
I'll try it. We'll see. We'll see if it works.
Sounds good. And we'll find out if Allison does embark on this challenge on our next episode. Tune in next time to find out. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. If you enjoyed it, please share it with a friend so that we can continue to grow and keep doing this. Even though we're going to do this regardless if we have 5 listeners or 500 listeners, it'd just be really cool to have more than 5 listeners, which I think we do now. But we appreciate
Yay.
every single one of you because it's cool.
We want 2023 to be the year of growth.
Year of growth, year of podcasting.
Woo!
And I think that's the sign off. We're never going to be good at the sign off.
That's all right. I think it's good enough for now.
Cool. As always, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Allison.
And remember, this is still not a pyramid scheme.
All right, bye.
All right, bye.